Anyone who is familiar with horses and ponies can learn the criteria necessary to judge a horse. Whether you ride English or Western, critically evaluating a horse's basic conformation is similar across all disciplines and breeds. In this presentation, you will be led through a discussion of, first, what exactly is horse judging, second, the basics of horse judging, third, the 5 key characteristics that are involved in judging conformation, and fourth, some practical exercises to improve your judging skills. By the end of this presentation, you should feel comfortable in your ability to judge a horse or pony. Let's first ask the question, what is horse judging? Well, if you look in Webster's dictionary, judging means to form an opinion or estimation of after careful consideration. So, judging is subjective, meaning that what you would like about a horse may not be the same as what another person likes about a horse. However, in order for you to form an opinion that is valid, you need to be familiar with the horse, know the criteria used to judge horses, and be able to recognize conformational faults. For example, you wouldn't want to go out and judge a class of alfalfa hay or country hams without knowing anything about them, would you? It's the same for horses. You have to know the basics before you begin. It's important to realize that horse judging is a valuable tool in many aspects. First of all, it will teach you more about the horse in general. You will also learn the skills that are needed to evaluate and select a horse for a suitable purpose, like jumping or barrel racing. It also teaches you how to make the choices and form opinions that will be important as you choose which horse you like better in a class. From gaining all of this knowledge about the horse, you will gain confidence in your skills in horsemanship and be able to defend your opinions, as well as take others' opinions into consideration. Now, let's get started on a few of the basics before we get into judging horses. The first and most important thing to know before you begin judging is the parts of the horse. This should start with the skeletal structure of the horse because this is what the skin and muscles cover. The skeletal structure is important because this will influence how the horse's body is structured, how they breathe, how they stand, and how they move. The external parts of the horse are the parts that we can see when evaluating a horse and will relate to their skeletal structure. When you defend your reasons for placing a horse in a class, you will describe the horse's conformation by parts of the horse. It is important to know the correct terminology for each part from muzzle to tail before you begin judging horses. Another part of the Livestock Knowledge CD goes into detail on various parts of both the skeletal anatomy and external parts of the horse. Be sure and review these parts of the CD so that you will know the skeletal and external parts of the horse. It is also important to be able to distinguish between different horse colors and markings. This first picture shows a chestnut or sorrel foal having a brown body, coat, and mane and tail. The facial marking on the foal is called a star. The second picture shows a gray. Gray horses are born black and eventually fade to a white as they grow older. The third picture in the middle is a chestnut or sorrel that has a facial marking called a blaze and leg markings called stockings and socks. With stockings, the white goes up to the knees, and with socks, the white goes up above ankle. The fourth picture in the upper right shows a bay with a stripe and a snip facial marking. The final picture in the lower right shows a palomino having a golden coat color with a flaxen mane and tail. These are some of the basic coat colors and markings. You should be familiar with these other colors as well, such as buckskin and roan. You need to become familiar with the many different disciplines of riding. Every discipline of riding will be different in some way, whether it's breeds, rules, or skills. In English tack, there is dressage, jumping, which is shown in this first picture, eventing, which is shown in the picture on the right, and driving, which is shown in the lower picture. Some Western events include pleasure, reining, roping, which is shown in the middle picture, cutting, team penning, and barrel racing. Now that we have covered the basics, let's go over the 5 key characteristics of judging conformation in horses. The 5 criteria for judging horses in their order of importance are balance, structure and travel, muscle, quality, and breed and sex characteristics. Each of these components should be critically analyzed and faulted according to each component's standards. The most important component of conformation is a horse's balance, but it can also be the most difficult to determine. Balance refers to how well the horse is put together and is evaluated from the side view. Areas that should be considered when evaluating balance include proportionality, top line, back, croup and hip, heart girth, shoulder, and neck. A balanced appearance from the side view should come from the front end and the hind end appearing to be proportional or of equal size and strength. You should be able to draw 3 equally sized circles on the horse's body if the horse is balanced. One from the point of the shoulder to the heart girth, one from the heart girth to the rear flank, and one from the rear flank to the point of the buttocks. A heavily fronted horse will be narrow and shallow in the hindquarters compared to the barrel and front quarters. In addition, a heavily quartered horse will be narrow, flat, and shallow in the front. The top line of a horse is an important component of balance and should be evaluated from the poll to the tail head. On a balanced horse, the top line will be strong and develop out of a balanced neck, shoulder, back, and croup. A horse's back extends from the withers to the loin and should be short in comparison to the underline. A short, strong back will allow a horse to carry more weight, whether it's a western saddle or a mare carrying a foal. A long underline allows the horse to reach underneath with the hind legs and lengthen the stride when traveling. Usually, a horse that has a long back will become sway-backed with age. The croup and hip are 2 very important components of a horse's movement. The hindquarters are the engine of a horse's stride and should be large and powerful, but they should also be proportional to the rest of the body. The hip should be long and sloping, and the croup should blend smoothly over the hindquarters. A steep and shallow croup and hip hinders the horse's length of stride from the hind legs, thus making the horse short-strided. Evaluating a horse's heart girth for depth is an important part of determining balance. The rib cage of the horse encloses the heart and lungs of the horse, and its size is proportional to the volume of air the lungs can hold. Therefore, a deep heart girth will allow the horse to take in more air during periods of exercise. In addition, the length from the withers to the bottom of the barrel is important and should be approximately equal to the length from the bottom of the barrel to the ground. The length and slope of the shoulders are important to a horse for movement of the front legs. The shoulders should have a 45 to 50 degree slope to allow for a longer range of motion in the front legs, a more comfortable ride, and a reduced risk of developing an unsoundness problem. If you go back to thinking about the horse's skeletal structure of the shoulder, it is made up of the scapula and the humerus. These bones work together to make the shock-absorbing parts of the horse's front legs. A horse with a longer, more sloping shoulder will be able to absorb more shock, whereas a horse with a steep, short shoulder will be short-strided and tend to be heavy on the forehand. Length and cleanness of the neck is important in the horse for balance. A horse will maintain its equilibrium during exercise by using its neck as leverage. The neck length should be proportional to the body size and should tie cleanly into the shoulders and withers. The neck should also tie high into the chest for suppleness and flexibility of movement. An underslung neck, also referred to as U-neck, or a heavily crested neck is undesirable. Structure and travel are evaluated from the side view as well as the front and rear views of the horse. For the horse to perform, it must have sound feet and legs. From the side view, you should be able to draw a straight line from the shoulder down the front of the knee, cannon bone, and hoof in the front legs. From the hind view, you should be able to draw a straight line from the hindquarters down the hock, cannon bone, and back of the hoof. An unsoundness is defined as any deviation in form or function that interferes with an individual's usefulness. It is important to be able to recognize common unsoundnesses in the horse to properly evaluate the animal. This slide shows some common unsoundnesses of the front legs. Here are some common unsoundnesses of the hind legs. The main problem with a horse having any of these structural unsoundnesses is what? The horse's ability to travel. In evaluating a horse's travel or way of going, the degree of action will vary from breed to breed. However, usefulness of all horses depends on their ability to move in a motion that is straight and true with a long, swift, and elastic stride. Here is an example of a horse that travels correctly. Here are some common deviations to a horse's travel. Muscling is judged by considering both quality and quantity. Quality refers to how symmetrical the muscles are over the entire body, whereas quantity is the size of the muscles. Generally speaking, more muscling is preferred over less muscling in all breeds of horses. A thorough evaluation of muscling will include views from the side, front, and rear of the horse. When viewing the horse from a side profile, pay special attention to the shoulder, forearm, loin, and hip. From the front view, evaluate muscling through the chest, and from the hind view, the muscling in the stifle and gaskin should be determined. The shoulder muscle is important for forward and lateral movement of the horse, like jumping. Although the muscle should be large and prominent, when viewed from the side, it should blend smoothly into the barrel of the horse. The forearm is important for forward movement and for support of the front of the horse. From the side view, smooth and well-defined muscling should be evident in the forearm. A well-muscled loin is important for coordination of the front and hind quarters of the horse during movement, as well as vertical extension. In addition, a strong loin will help to provide support for the back. When viewed from the side, a horse should show good muscling in the hindquarters. Muscling in the hip, especially in the croup, will give the horse impulsion or drive of the hindquarters. A heavily muscled chest and forearm is needed for good extension and more lateral movement power during motion for the horse. When viewing the horse from the front, the chest or pectoral region should have ample muscling that runs from the neck to the insides of the forearm and into the knees. In a well-muscled horse, you will notice a V appearance of the chest. The forearm muscle should be bulging from the chest to the knee. Most of the power from the hindquarters comes from the stifle muscle, and the gaskin muscles are important to power the flexion and extension of the hind legs. When viewed from the rear, the horse should appear to be as thick or thicker through the center point of the stifle as they are through the hip, and the stifle should be extended downward into the gaskin muscle. Both the inner and outer gaskins should be bulging, while tying deep into the hocks. Quality is a combination of a horse's head, throat latch, skin and coat condition, and bone structure. The head should be symmetrical with very little excess tissue and showing more refinement in features. The ears should be short and alert. The eyes should be large and widely set on the side of the face, tapering to a fine muzzle. A clean and refined throat latch will allow a greater degree of flexion at the pole, as well as the ability to take in more air through the trachea. A high-quality horse will appear healthy, be shiny and smooth with little blemishes. The joints should be free of swelling or puffiness and smooth over the joints. Sex and breed characteristics are also an important part of judging horses. Sex characteristics can usually be described by the head and volume of muscling. Stallions typically have a more bulging jaw and overall muscling, whereas a mare's features are more refined. Breed characteristics, or type, refers to the combined characteristics that distinguish one breed from another. This is usually seen in the head, neck, croup, tail set, and movement. It is important to know the breed standards for the various horse breeds so that you will easily recognize horses that show good or poor breed characteristics. Now that we've gone over and discussed the 5 criteria for judging horses, Let's practice judging a class of quarter-horse mares from the Houston Livestock Show Horse Judging Contest and see how we can use the judging criteria to place a class of 4 horses. Here is shown a side view of the 4 quarter-horse mares. In this class, 1 is a sorrel mare with a blaze face, 2 is a brown mousy-colored mare, 3 is a solid sorrel, and 4 is a bay mare. Here is shown a rear view of the 4 quarter-horse mares. Here is shown a front view of the 4 quarter-horse mares. This slide shows all 3 views of the 4 quarter-horse mares in this class. The official placing for this class of quarter-horse mares, provided by Dr. Pete Gibbs and Dr. Doug Householder, Extension Horse Specialists at Texas A&M University, is 1, 3, 2, 4, with cuts of 3, 2, and 5. In the next 3 slides, the reasons given by the officials for this placing will be presented. In the top pair today, we placed 1 over 3 because we felt 1 had the best combination of femininity, balance, and muscling of the 2 mares. We felt that 3 was certainly a mare that was a little more structurally correct in her pastern, standing on a little more slope in the pastern, and more level over the croup and along the hip. In the middle pair, we put the solid sorrel 3 over 2 because we felt like 3 had more overall quality and refinement throughout. Moving to the bottom pair, we found 2 placing over 4 because 2 stood taller at the withers, was more structurally correct throughout, and was a mare that stood with a longer, more sloping shoulder and more total length of hip. We left 4 at the bottom of the class today, realizing that she has some very nice qualities. However, she is the smallest mare in the class, and she toes out a little bit in the front when viewed from the rear. We would like to see this mare a little more level in the top line when viewed from the side. Now you know the criteria to look for when judging horses. As with anything, the more you practice and put this knowledge to use, the more comfortable you will become in your abilities to place a class of horses or ponies. Good luck as you put these skills to work.